Let's remind ourselves of what happened when the riders took to the track at the Val d'Or.
The first round of the 2014 campaign heralded Manicourt's final staging of the Val d'Or. The favourites were SRC Kawasaki after 5 consecutive victories in the event, but they struggled in qualifying and slipped back from the pace in the early stages. Reigning champion Cert instead held the lead, Vincent Philippe doing much of the work in the first stints of the day. In wet-dry conditions throughout the race, there were several major casualties, including a big fall for junior team at Suzuki, who recovered to the race. And an even bigger one then for Wayne Maxwell. The yacht team forced to abandon their race in the first event of the year. Thankfully, the Australian is back for round 2. As night fell, conditions worsened, but Cert were confident with Vincent Philippe at the handlebars, right up until he fell and gave away the lead. Injury to the rider stopped him from returning to the track, and he's replaced by Damien Cudlin in Suzuka. Dawn brought about another spate of falls, 5 in succession, caused by another burst of rain. The GMT 94 bike span out from second, although they would recover that place later in the race. Honda Racing looked set to take their first win, and the fruits of a winter reshuffle seemed to be paying dividends, right up until a mechanical failure cost them their haul of championship points. To finish first you must finish, and there's no team better versed in the rules of engagement in endurance than SRC Kawasaki, who were only too happy to take advantage. With Mathieu Legrive injured prior to the race, the team's 2 other riders had been forced to run the last 23 hours of the race alone, and they were rewarded with yet another Val d'Or win. Scoring system for 2014 did at least leave Honda Racing inside the top 10 in the point standings, despite their late race retirement. Of the teams racing every round this year, GMT 94 is highest. The Suzuka 8 Hours has been staged every year since 1978, and its roll of honour reads as a who's who of motorcycle racing. Over 85,000 fans were predicted to flock to the circuit to see their heroes, who include the regulars of the Endurance World Championship and famous names making an appearance as wildcard competitors.
The many fans in attendance here in Suzuka know that every year, without fail, they are in for a very special race. The 8 Hours is the event on the annual calendar and brings with it the biggest teams and the biggest riders.
Riders from MotoGP, World Superbikes and their support classes as well have often joined the Endurance World Championship as wildcards for the Suzuka 8 Hours, and 3 of the best are looking forward to their 2014 race.
I think it's such a big event, especially for the Japanese manufacturers such as Honda. A lot of team effort goes into it. It's not just you trying to win a race. It's in this team there's 3 riders. Have got to do a good job. All the mechanics, the pit stops. It's such a big team effort. It's something I really enjoy.
For me, the key to ride here was the track, because I had my first podium in 250cc in 2002. I had very great memory, and for me this track is the one of the best in the world.
It was a track that I raced at in my Grand Prix career 8 times, and I won this race 4 times. So, and I felt like it was kind of home for at least, I mean, it's home for all the Japanese manufacturers, but it always made it extra special for me to be able to present the trophy to the to the Suzuki boss, and it is part of the World Endurance Championship, but even more importantly, it's in all the Japanese manufacturers' backyard, so they do everything they can and support as many teams as they can to try and win this race.
Switching disciplines is never easy, and for some of the Suzuka wildcards this year, the race presents them a totally different type of machine. Expectations of the challenges ahead then remain understandably mixed.
I never rode on a super bike. It's the tire, the brake, everything is different. You have less power. The bike is very smooth. and I needed to adapt my riding style to compare MotoGP, but now I'm okay, and I take pleasure with this bike, and it's the most important.
Yeah, obviously a World Superbike is around 40 minutes, 45 minutes. You've got to do 1 hour stints here. But the biggest thing is the humidity and the temperature. You know, it's you can't really explain how big and hard that is. And definitely at the end of the 8 hours, you know you've done it.
MotoGP rider, you are only 25 rider. Here you are 70. You have some factory bikes, some people come with the own bike, and it's a nice atmosphere, but the top rider ride very, very fast, and it will be a difficult race, but I think we have a good opportunity to do a good result because the team is very good, and I have two strong teammates.
It's what keeps me awake at night, not being the fastest guy out there, even though I know reality has, you know, I'm probably not going to be, but to be closer to the front. And, you know, I think I start every race with the ambition of trying to win.
Any difference between the West and the rest will only be shown up through the race itself. "70 teams made up the grid for the 2014 Suzuka 8 Hours, separated by over 13 seconds in qualifying. Joining Honda in the top 20 were GMT 94 and the Suzuki Endurance Racing Team, sandwiched around 16 Asian outfits. Championship regulars Monster Energy Yamaha, Bolliger Team Switzerland and Team R2CL.
With the start of the race looming, the Japanese favourites are the Honda RT Hark Pro team, who are fielding their winning crew from last year. Yoshimura Suzuki Shell Advanced team are also looking strong as they qualified on pole yesterday. Our full lineup will have to endure the hot, humid and sticky conditions of the Japanese climate, so it's not going to be easy for them. Time now for the start of the 37th edition Suzuka 8 Hours.
The flooded circuit meant and the torrential rain would delay the start of the race by an hour, meaning the battles would have to take place over a 7-hour period and start in the wet. After dry weather all weekend, teams were caught totally unawares by the changing meteorological conditions.
The fact that we don't know anything about our fuel consumption in the rain, also because we haven't done any testing, and then also we don't know anything about the other bike. So the first hour at least, depending on when we restart, the first hour or first couple of hours are going to be defining what we will do for the rest of the race.
Of course, we can be a little slower in case of wet, if the rain is very long, but our decision is to change nothing.
Many of the teams on the grid opting to make few or no adjustments to their machines, as the flash floods were predicted to give way to drying conditions within the early laps of the race. Nonetheless, it was under wet race conditions that the Suzuka 8 Hours would finally get underway. The traditional Le Mans-style start would decide who would take the whole shot in Suzuka. A poor start from both pole sitters Yoshimura Suzuki and also for the TSR Honda. And it was the Suzuki machine of Team Kageyama who led into the first turn from 6th on the grid. The Monster Energy Yamaha tucked in behind. Around turn 2, the number 104 Honda of Toho Racing made an impressive move for second from back in 9th on the grid. And the number 34 took advantage of a gap on the inside to come through for third there as well. A first change of race leader with the number 104 taking the lead. Team Kageyama slipping back 2 slots from their early position. And the Yoshimura Suzuki had quickly recovered to second after its poor start. By the end of lap 1, Kazuki Akiyoshi on the FCC TSR Honda was the form rider, picking his way through to second after a poor start. Diving down the inside of turn 16 and making the switch back on the Casio triangle to take the place from Takuya Suda. And it wasn't long before he was through into the lead. Another bold move given the conditions, charging through the S's early on lap 2. The number 12 legend of Yoshimura Suzuki had made excellent progress in the early part of the race, moving up from its grid lot of 10th than their rivals. And after half an hour on the gradually drying circuit, Akiyoshi held a 30-second lead. Not quite enough to have a pit stop's advantage, so Jonathan Rea would have to work his way through the pack when the team came in for their first relay. Their entry into boxes would allow the 634 of Musashi RT Hark Pro to take a provisional lead and spark a chain of stops, all just before the hour mark of the race. Takumi Takahashi would be into the pits not long after for his first fuel stop, but in the meanwhile he'd gained track position for the team. Reigning world champion Surt exited the pits behind the number 11 TSR Honda, but already a lap behind. Meanwhile, pushing through the traffic, making laps of some of the slower members of the Elite 70 in the race, the number 634 headed back towards the grandstand section and to its stop. The Australian would take to the track in third, leapfrogging Team Kageyama in the pit stop phase. Meanwhile, down the order, Team Flembeau had dropped 10 places from their starting position of 37th. We came in, changed to slicks, and went on a dry setup. So we've changed from wet to dry, that's it.
Yeah, so Roman was on the rain tires. We changed to slicks, and I had the first few laps. I have to go slowly, but then it goes dry fast, and I can go quicker lap times and follow a little bit Kageyama, but just one lap. And then, yeah, it was dry, and I do the first stand. It was okay, and then I come in. It was a little bit raining. I stayed one lap longer out, so we come in, changed again to slick, but then we get the heavy rain and we changed to rain tires, and now Saiger is out, and I think it was a good stop. Was on the right time.
The number 07 Monster Energy Yamaha was up to 5th, having taken advantage of the misfortune of other teams to move up 2 places. Brock Parks had ridden the first stint for the team, and despite remaining on the lead lap, he found the pace up front just a little too sharp.
It's difficult conditions. I didn't really do much in the rain condition, and I found the bike quite difficult in the rain, and we struggled with rear grip. I had no rear grip, so I lost quite a bit of time in the first stint. I had a good start, but just couldn't go with the front guys, and had a few dramas with the bike, but we're not sure what it was. It stopped, and I lost a lot of time in 2 laps. So now it's drying, so hopefully we can try and make some time up. And I think we're in the battle between 3 and 6 at the moment.
After 2 hours, the top 12 outfits were separated by just a lap. 2 Honda machines heading the 5 teams on the lead lap, with Kawasaki's Team Green only down in 6th. The heavy rain returned to Suzuka at the 2-hour mark, and several teams took advantage to make swift progress. Musashi RT Hark Pro, by contrast, chose caution, slipping back to 3rd position as Team Green came through at 130R. The FCC TSR Honda still led the race, but would now expect its 43-second lead to come under threat. The Kawasaki team's wet weather pace, meanwhile, was starting to unravel with a series of errors. Teams took the rain as an invitation to box and an opportunity to change to the wet tyres that would better help them negotiate the track. Jonathan Rea was in for the race-leading FCC TSR Honda. The 39-year-old Superbike veteran Kazuki Akiyoshi back on board. This time falling on the circuit from 2nd. The number 87 coming around turn 11 at the hairpin, and the back end simply giving it up. We couldn't find the problem or fix everything, but almost, so it's running almost fixed. A fall for Kensuke Mori was the next main drama of the race, and this time the incident brought out a safety car. Kazuki Akiyoshi was still the leader, but with a vastly reduced margin. Mori made his way back to the pits, missing large chunks of his machine, and would drop back from 53rd position to 66th and 18 laps down. His biggest influence on the race would be the prompting of the safety car that would create another all-out sprint. Thankfully for all of the teams, while the safety car was out, the rain began to slow, and by the time the riders would eventually pin their throttles again, the sun was beginning to return to Suzuka. No comfort for Team Green, who by the 3-hour mark were suffering in 25th and 5 laps down on the leader. After a solid start to the race by Owen Nigon and having moved up to 11th at the end of the second hour, the Suzuki Endurance Racing team were running highest of the championship regulars. Damien Cudlin was at the handlebars for them after joining the team as the replacement for injured Frenchman Vincent Philippe. 3 laps down on the leader, Surt's focus would seemingly change from targeting a win to banking valuable race points. The Australian rode 10th for them, just a position above fellow. They are difficult conditions. The track is drying, we've had storms, loads is going on, and it's true that this race is really going to the finish. I think we'll have plenty of surprises before the end. We're being smart, trying to calm down the matter. We absolutely must conserve our high position. After that, we'll see. After their disappointment in Bol d'Or, there were more technical problems for Honda in Suzuka. The British-based team had been running at 9th and only a lap behind the leader when the issues began. But a problem in the 3rd hour of the race forced them back to the pits from 9th. Although no mid-race points are awarded at the Suzuka 8 hours, so if Honda were to claim anything for their efforts, their riders would have to fight from the back. Because after spending 20 minutes halted in the box, Kenny Ferret would only re-emerge onto the circuit down in 61st, 13 laps down. Over that 30-minute period, Honda's race had been ruined. Ferret would remain 13 laps back from the race leader for the next hour, but with a similar pace to the front runners, quickly began to dispatch back markers. Having come across Team Green in the course of their recovery, the two would begin to cut through the field together. The Kawasaki riders still 5 laps back from the leader after their incidents, but ahead of Honda in race time. By the half-race distance, Ferret...
Yeah, just had some kind of electrical problem, so they just changed a lot of items. It's obviously cured it, but we don't know which one caused the problem at the moment.
After rain-related dramas for their rivals, Team Kagayama had been able to move up into 2nd position behind FCC TSR Honda. They would lose the place after the pit stops, with Musashi Hark Pro and Yoshimura Suzuki coming through. Switzerland's Moto2 star Dominique Agerter, winner of the last race in his regular category, would be next up for the team. The track still visibly damp offline, but with no rain for the rest of the race, the pace would gradually hot up. Ovations on the circuit. And time to cool off for the Australian before getting back on board later in the race.
It's pretty hard physically. I think the biggest thing I feel when I'm on the bike is just a lack of air, you know, like I'm trying to breathe in as much oxygen as I can, but I can't seem to get enough, you know. Even the air that you're breathing in is really hot, so yeah, physically it's a lot tougher than you'd find in Europe or whatever. So even though it's 8 hours, it's kind of It's every bit as hard as a 24-hour, to be honest. Yeah, physically.
We're looking at temperatures at the moment around, so we measure their temperature every time they go off the bike, and we try and bring it down. If it's, I think we've had 1 or 2 over 39, but normally it's less than that. And they can lose anything up from 1.5 to 2 kilograms, and that's basically fluid. We monitor what they take in and what they get out during the before and after stints. So he has to drink 2 of these when he gets off the bike in order to get his weight back up and make sure he stays hydrated. He loses over 2% of his body weight, which could be critical, but he has 200 millilitres in his leathers, which he drinks during the race.
With Cert having retired from the Bold Door earlier this season, a finish would be an absolute must in this race to keep their World Championship hopes alive. Running as the top team among the Endurance World Championship regulars was equally valuable. The number 104 of Toho Racing, they're putting a lap on the number 1 after their stop. Erwan Nigon getting the bike back up to race pace. Team Green were back into the pits, this time thankfully for a scheduled stop. Katsuaki Fujiwara in to be replaced by fellow countryman Akira Yanagawa. Having come back from 25th to 16th, he'd done a good job to recover the race and remain only 5 laps behind the leader. The podium would still be a long shot though. The first rule of a gruelling test like this is to finish, whatever the situation. While the battles continued for 2nd and 3rd, the FCC TSR Honda team remained clear of the drama, comfortably ahead. The number 11, piloted by Jonathan Ray, was preparing to put a 3rd lap on Honda Kumamoto Racing in 10th. He and teammate Kazuki Akiyoshi having alternated during the race, leaving Italian teammate Lorenzo Zanetti on the bench. Making swift work of the backmarkers is key in any endurance race, but even more so when 70 riders crowd the circuit. Ray had built up a 1-lap lead by the time his stint came to a close, a brilliant individual effort that left his team in command.
We have a good condition and a good relationship, and rider and mechanic, tire, suspension. That now 100% is okay.
Discomfort in any race can only be temporary. And just as the riders settled into a rhythm on a now relatively dry circuit, the safety car was forced out again, bunching up the pack at the midway stage of the race. An overtake from Michael van der Mark on Randy de Punier moved Musashi Hart Pro into 2nd just moments before the safety car, while behind Team Kageyama and the Monster Energy Yamaha both slipped back. The race got back underway with the number 11 Honda leading the pack. After his brilliant overtake, Michael van der Mark came into the pits and put Takumi Takahashi back on the bike. The post-safety car period was filled with such rider switches, Wayne Maxwell coming in for Yard and Tommy Bridewell taking over for them in 11th position. The Yamaha was serviced faster, but the Honda was still 3 laps ahead. Jonathan Ray was the last of the big names to pit, conserving the TSR Honda's advantage. The Brit can add the Suzuka 8 Hours to one of several races he's led in 2014 as a 4-time race winner in the World Superbike Championship this year. Kazuki Akiyoshi would be the next rider to take over for the team as they formed a Honda 1-2 up front. Another lower order faller, this time the number 21 Suzuki of the Hamamatsu Dream Team. For now, the race would continue without calling for the safety car. Yoshimura Suzuki third, Takuya Suda taking the reins for them. And stable gaps between the front trio seemed to suggest that the race was beginning to settle down. But a dramatic fall for the race leaders would turn the race on its head. Kazuki Akiyoshi, the early pace setter for the Honda team, was the rider to hit the deck. Another nasty spin at 130R. The Japanese rider bravely brought the damaged bike back to the pits for the team to repair. It was later confirmed that he battled through the pain of a broken leg to recover the machine.
Today, two-time rain and ground temperature about 20 degrees is less. Normal Suzuka racing track is this season is over 50 degrees, but just now 28, 30.
Within 40 minutes of a crash that had looked race ending, the team's mechanics had got the bike back on track. It would be a hard slog as endurance debutant Lorenzo Zanetti joined the track in 50th position and 16 laps behind the race leader. Back into the pits was the number 7 Yacht, running 4 laps back from the lead pack. They'd benefited from the Mizuki Aki.
It's been really good, to be honest. From the first session, you know, on the Thursday we were down in 40th. Obviously we're running the Pirelli tyres and at the minute they're not quite working in the heat as we was hoping, sort of thing. But you know, we've done a lot of work with the tyres and the team and you know, to be running 10th in the races. We sort of quietly knew we had good race pace, but we just couldn't get it to work for one lap, like, you know. So yeah, you know, I think there's still potential we could finish a little bit higher up, but yeah, if we can finish top 10, then it will, you know, a massive improvement from where we've been.
Down the pit lane at Sert, their team was as high as it had been all race. As the day drew on, in fact, the permanent teams not only found their feet, they were flying. Damien Cudlin was occupying 8th position for the French-based outfit and storming through the back markers. A move here on the 30th position outfit as they went 6 laps behind the reigning world champions. Their pace certainly wasn't enough to make up the large margin that they'd lost in wet conditions when Japanese teams seemed to dominate. But once the track dried out and conditions were more representative of what the European outfits had encountered during testing, they were back on form. The same 3 laps that separated them from the leaders at the 5-hour mark would be the same gap at the end of the race. But to match the race leaders' pace was an impressive sign for the rest of their season. Stand-in Damien Cudlin had done an excellent job in replacing the more experienced Vincent Philippe as the Frenchman awaits a further operation on an arm injury sustained at the Bol d'Or. Also working their way back through the field was the Yamaha GMT 94. Normally a track expert in Suzuka in first hour and slipped to 22nd. But with Kenny Foray at the handlebars, the 94 was making steady progress. They lined up to zip past fellow countrymen at Team Flembeau, another of the championship regulars who was sitting back down in 29th. The number 40 briefly seized a slipstream opportunity, picked off the GMT 94. But it wasn't long before they were back in 12th again and pushing forward. A move into the Casio triangle, making that pass. Foray hasn't historically enjoyed the Suzuka track, preferring the French circuits that he knows so well. But this was an excellent stint for the 26-year-old.
It is a shame to have lost the start of the race like this. We have lost 2 laps. It is unbelievable. We are very disappointed for that. But now, since 2 hours, we are very fast on the track. We are very competitive, and so we have fun.
My job is to take every lap, the time lap of the bike, and seeing on my dash every lap of the bike for each rider, step by step. And then I transmit every my data with the radio on the box. This is the first step of my job. The second step is in coordination with the box to give a strategy for the race. More laps, less laps. I check the time of my bike and the lap time of the other bike, the rival and the rest of the group. This is the first check and this is the second check for me. With this, I check if the bike come or not. Because if you don't come after 2 minutes and 10 seconds, maybe come to the box. This is the best system because it's a manual system. Because if there is a fault with electricity, I have with this system, I have every lap, in any case. It's an old system, but for me it's the best.
With a timekeeper. For each rider, we have improve.
If the Musashi RT Hark Pro was starting to feel comfortable in its newly inherited lead, it wasn't going to have much time to exercise it. A multi-machine pile-up would prompt yet another safety car just an hour from the end of the race. When the race resumed, it was the number 634 that sat at the head of the pack, streaming back down towards 130R. The Musashi RT Hark Pro preparing for its final stop, with Takumi Takahashi taking over from Michael van der Mark. A Japanese rider would seemingly have the honour of bringing home the winning Japanese machine. The first stint this morning we had rainy conditions and the TSR took advantage from us. But we kept our pace and now it's a good result for us. So if we keep this pace up, we will win. But there was one final surprise in the race. A three-rider pile-up through the S's that would bring out one last safety car. One of the outfits involved sat in the top 10 at the time of the crash, the EVA RT Synergy Trickstar dropping back. It was nonetheless disappointment for some of the lower order riders as well. After the safety car came in, we tried another quick lap, and I arrived in the slow mechanics. Under safety car conditions and with only 20 minutes of racing still to go, Musashi RT Hark Pro and Yoshimura Suzuki were packed together on the same lap at the front of the pack. As the safety car peeled away with only 20 minutes remaining, the race was underway again. A buffer of several back markers between leaders Musashi RT Hark Pro and their closest on-track rivals Yoshimura Suzuki Shell Advance. Josh Waters would be the rider to bring it home for the Yoshimura Suzuki, and he was giving it everything to get past back markers and haul himself back into contention for the win. He had been the slowest of his teammates in qualifying, though. Musashi RT Hark Pro had been given such a commanding advantage thanks in large part to the efforts of Michael van der Mark, who'd set a series of fastest laps that reflected his efforts in qualifying. But he could only watch on now, as the fate of the race was out of his hands. Nervous moments as the Honda held on in the closing stages. Only mechanical dramas could halt it now. And out of the final turn in Suzuka to raise the roof, the final turns to win for Honda and Japan. A great race from all of the Musashi Hark Pro riders, knowing exactly when the right moments were to push. They couldn't take pole position, didn't even have the best start, and looked like they were going to have to settle for second. But when the FCC TSR Honda pushed just that little bit too hard, the win was there for the taking. And with Michael van der Mark in particular setting a series of hot laps in the closing hours, they did the work to seal the win. Results for the championship regulars included an 8th place for Cert. It's not a brilliant position, but considering what has happened this week, I'm very happy. Moreover, it helps us to get back some points in the championship. It's true that at Bol d'Or we didn't get much, but this is a good start. Then we've got Germany, where we'll do even better, and then Le Mans, and at Le Mans we'll win. There were also scenes of celebration at GMT 94 as they took the lead of the championship.
Very, very strange feeling. You know, my best placing is 3. We finished already 5, 5 and 7. The first time we were 9, and I'm really happy, because the race was so hard. The start was a nightmare. 3 hours, we didn't understand nothing, and the 5 last hours was really good.
Musashi RT Hark Pro took a 2nd consecutive win at the Suzuka 8 Hours, but in terms of championship results, the most relevant teams were those in the pack from 8th. Led by switching 2nd of the permanent teams, GMT 94 took the lead of the championship, but with SRC Kawasaki only 7 points behind, despite missing the 8 Hours of Suzuka. Mathieu Lagrive is the man to watch in the Riders' Championship as he moves 2 points above his SRC Kawasaki team into the standings. Despite the confidence of the Endurance World Championship regulars coming into the race, wet conditions played into the hands of the Japanese outfits who took the top 3 steps on the podium. In the final reckoning, the top 4 were separated by just a lap, a proximity accentuated by safety cars that regularly punctuated the race. But after 7 hours of competition, and with less than a minute between the top 2, this was a race to remember.
What a crazy weekend. A huge crowd flocked to Suzuka to watch Japan's finest mix it up with our top European teams. But in the end, it was Musashi Hark Pro Honda RT team that topped the podium once again for the 2nd year.